Hey, my Root Love family. I am Charity Faye, your resident soul sister. And here at Root Love, on this podcast, this is where we reclaim wellness, remember the wisdom of our ancestors, as well as honor our roots. And today, I am so honored to have a fellow herbal mama here with me, and we get to dive into some amazing conversation about her journey, as well as how she has reclaimed and remembered roots of her own. I am remembering a really beautiful quote by an educator and a writer named Michelle E. Lee. And she said that rediscovering the forgotten legacies of these healers is essential to understanding African American herbalism. And today we have Anisha joining us. And she had a very interesting path that led her to remembering ancestral practices and wisdoms within her own lineage that has led her here today. And so we get an opportunity to welcome her into this very, very sacred space. So, welcome now, Miss Inisha. How are you over
Thank
there?
you. I am doing wonderful, blessed. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Well, before we dive into this conversation, because I'm excited to unpack your story and hear some of the experiences and the discoveries that you've made that have led you to where you are today. And so, before we dive in, I just want to take a moment and allow us to breathe and collect ourselves. I know we're both mamas, and so no telling what both of us experienced before we got on this podcast. And so it's just good to have a moment to like
Yes.
ground ourselves and allow ourselves to be here. And so we are going to take a deep cleansing inhale and hold our breath and exhale. And my prayer today is may the wisdom of our ancestors meet us right here where we are. May spirit, the divine love, all that is and ever will be, nurture us, hold us, and guide us as we remember, rediscover, and allow ourselves to be well right here in this present moment. And so it is. So, Anisha, listen, it's important for us to not only make medicine for our babies and our families, but to also make medicine for ourselves. And so
Mhm.
today, because Aunt Flo is doing her beautiful work in my body, I am drinking some red raspberry leaf tea. And for me, that's really, really important during this time of month because number one, it has anti inflammatory properties, but also she has a very high mineral content. She is rich in magnesium and potassium and calcium. And those minerals really allow the muscles to relax and can also help prevent cramping by supporting a smooth muscle function. And so I know a lot of us, we hear often like, hey, sis, when it's that time of the month, like go grab your red raspberry leaf tea. But I also think it's important for us to understand like what that beautiful tea is going to do for us
Mhm.
as it enters the body. And so I need my muscles to be relaxed. I don't need my body to feel like it's doing, all this
Mhm.
twisting, turning and carrying on. I need it to be zen and relaxed all of the time. And so I definitely enjoy a cup of red raspberry leaf tea. So what
Yeah.
are you sipping on over there?
So today I am having, so every morning I try to be intentional about having a carminative blend to get that digestive fire going. Not to tell all my business, but digestive issues, we have a more sensitive digestive system in our family. It
Hmm.
appears I've discovered, and so just having those carminative herbs like clove and ginger and that turmeric to help with that anti-inflammatory action and also get those juices flowing, get that bile going, get that liver functioning. Really helps to kind of set the tone for the day so that when I do start to eat, it's my digestive system is already fired up, right? It's like firing that furnace. at the beginning of your day to kind of get your house warmed up. It's that same effect. So that's what I like to start my day with.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a beautiful way to begin your day, already supporting your body,
Mhm.
already giving your body exactly what it needs so that it can support your movement and your rest throughout the day. And so I think that's a beautiful way to nourish your body,
Mhm.
um, and to give it everything that it needs to function well.
Yeah.
Gut health is very, very important. And so,
Absolutely.
way to go. And this is also support that you provide for your children.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So I like to start their day with that as well at the beginning before they even have breakfast. Here's, the little cup of tea. They put a little honey in it, which adds more anti-inflammatory action to it. It's also moistening, so it gets those, that colon going, um, and really allows them to start processing that food. If they
Mhm.
have like some meat or anything like that, it'll help them to do that, and they enjoy it. I like to allow them to have a hand in what it is that they put in their bodies, both herbally, but then also just like nutritionally. And as you were saying, explaining to them why it's important, how it's working, so that they can better connect to that, and they seem to enjoy it.
Wow, I think that's really important for your kids to be connected to
Hmm.
their own healing and their own wellness journey,
Yeah.
giving them autonomy over their experience and allowing them to be in touch with their bodies, helping
Hmm.
them to understand, like, hey, you are an intuitive being,
Yes.
and yes, mommy has knowledge and insight about these herbs and about how to make these medicines, but this is ultimately your path, your journey,
Hmm.
and it's your body you
Hmm.
know and so I think
Absolutely.
it's very empowering as a mother. I think
Hmm.
it's also very empowering that, hey, your kids have an herbalist right there at the house,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so whatever's happening in their body, you can be intuitive enough to say, hey, here's what I can provide you to support whatever
Hmm.
you're experiencing. But also, you can come in here too and infuse this medicine with your hands and your intentions,
Hmm.
because this is ultimately for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really very insightful and very empowering that your kids get that experience right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, we're going to get into this journey of yours. I want to know about 2015. Okay. Um, Everybody's got a turning point, a turning year in their life where it's just like, hey, that's the day the game changed for me. So what
Hmm.
happened?
So I can go a little bit back prior to that to say that I can count on one hand the number of positive experiences that I have had with the medical system, right? I remember being a freshman in college and going to the hospital at like 4 o'clock in the morning because my stomach was hurting and being completely disregarded. Um, and feeling not empowered, feeling like I was a burden, feeling like, I wasn't being taken seriously. And it really triggered something in me. Even as a child, going to the hospital, going to checkups, things like that, I could tell intuitively, because I've always been an intuitive person, that we just weren't, our experiences weren't empowering. We weren't being advocated for. And throughout my adulthood, that just continued to be reinforced to me. And I was tired of not feeling heard, respected, like my concerns weren't being taken seriously. Like you knew me better than I knew me. How can you know me better? You're going off a chart. So a chart that's being applied to different bodies and different socioeconomic situations and different, lived experiences. So how can we're not a monolith, right? So how can you make these judgments off of seeing me for 15 minutes? How can you tell me that this is what I need to do off of a chart when you don't know the backstory of whatever it is we're discussing? And it really just, it's, it didn't make me feel defeated. It just kind of made me feel like I can do this. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do it myself. you know? And so in 2015, I had my son, my first son, and I was really going through a period of deep introspection. So I am a licensed attorney. That's my professional background. And during that time, I was just like, ugh, is this all I'm supposed to be doing with my life? This is not bringing me fulfillment. I've checked off all these boxes. I have the house, the car, the money, the social standing, you know what I mean, the education, but I'm not being fulfilled. And so when I had my son in 2015, I don't know if you're spiritual, your listeners are spiritual, but I am a firm believer that the universe, God, source places people in your life when you need them the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt that with my son. His my pregnancy with him, it wasn't complicated, but it could have been better. I could have I wish that I would have had more support. And I didn't have that with him, so I had to do a lot of things on my own. And so when I had him, it was just like a light bulb or something was activated within me, within my spirit, that really, one, wanted me to reconnect with my ancestors, right? Because when I was going through that pregnancy, I was looking at those ancestral medicines, those ancestral ways of caring for the body and nurturing, the womb and things like that. And I spent a lot of time reconnecting with nature. And when I had him, something activated and was like, this is where I'm supposed to be at. This is the
Mm-hmm.
nurturing that I'm supposed to be providing to myself, and not just myself, but my people. And so having him and just seeing him, and this was also the year that Tamir Rice was, you know, killed in Cleveland, I think it was, Ohio. And I don't know, something about having that first son is just like, oh my God, this is, you know what I mean? This is what my baby's gonna be growing up in this world. And so it was just like a whole like Saturn return type of moment where you're just really reevaluating and questioning everything. And my health it wasn't bad, but again, it could have been better, right? I could have been more supported and could have had more access to things and advocated for. And my son, it was the same thing with him. So he wasn't thriving as well as he should have been at that time. And I was really concerned about that. I'm like, well, why isn't he doing why isn't he gaining weight? Right? Why isn't he looks very gaunt, like he's not looking the way that he should be looking. And it just got disregarded. It got passed off, oh well, he'll be fine, he's long as he's eating, this type of situation. And I was like, no, that don't sound right. I'm with him every day, all day. At this time I had taken a break from practicing law to be really at home with I had two kids at this time. And I was like, no, we need to do something different. And so this is when I really started to really get into herbal medicine, really look and say, okay, well, let me look at what he's doing, and let me look at these herbs and see if there's something that there's a disconnect somewhere that maybe we can supplement with herbs. Why isn't he gaining weight? Does he need a little bit more bulky herbs to kind of sustain that digestive function and give him that nutrients, pour those nutrients into his body, right? And so I started working with a lot of chamomile. Maybe he's not processing, certain things in the milk the way that he should be. Maybe he needs some more digestive fire, right? He needs that to kind of bring in more of those minerals and those nutrients that he needs to kind of start bulking up and gaining weight. And once I started doing that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is we're getting somewhere now. And he was eating, and then he started to gain weight. Once I started to introduce like the fennel in there, that chamomile, give him a little bit of that nettle with some linden mixed in it, so that it wasn't drying him out too much, but he was still having that moisture in the body and the digestive system. And that's what made me want to get into clinical herbalism and not just
Mm-hmm.
homeopathic remedies, but pairing these conditions with herbs as a way to address acute and chronic situations that are going on with the body. And so after that, it just kind of became ingrained, and I leaned more into it as I had more babies, and my life experiences changed, and I met more people, and I dived deeper into my ancestry, and it all just started to come together and make sense. And so I was like, okay, let me go ahead and get this official training. Let me get these, this background, this experience in, so I can really start to help my people because, you know, as I said, at least for my experience within my family, we've been to the doctor. I've been to a doctor to a lot of with a lot of my family, and we just they have not been advocated for it. And so
Yeah.
with me also being an attorney, I was like, I would go. They would call me and be like, "Can you come to the doctor with me because I'm not being advocated for, I'm not being listened to." And then with me also having that experience as a clinical herbalist, I can get in there and say, "No, what?" Second guess that and advocate for that and really champion for the people that I'm working with. And so I was like, this is what we need as a people. This is the type of support that we need.
Wow. Um, what an experience you had. The fact that you said, hey, my baby's not gaining weight. Let me tap into these herbs. That is very different and counter the culture that many of us know.
Hmm.
Because when I was growing up, if that baby wasn't gaining no weight, they would say, put some cereal in that baby's milk and it's going to fatten that baby up, And so
Yeah.
to hear you in 2015, you were like, no, let me dip into this fennel and this chamomile and
Yeah.
let me, like, dear sis, bless you and your ancestors who guided you along the way, because that is not something that most of us would lean into, because modern medicine discourages so much from leaning into herbs and ancestral practices that
Hmm.
carried our ancestors throughout the ages. But also, most of us wouldn't think for a baby that's not
Hmm.
even like 1 or 2 years old, give them teas or any form of herbal supplements, because we
Hmm.
are clutching our pearls thinking,
Right.
"I'm gonna give this to my baby." Oh no, wait a second. They're not two yet. You got to wait till they're 24 months.
Uh-huh.
And so we've stopped being intuitive. Many of us wouldn't even have the nerve to try something else other than some cereal to fatten up our babies.
Yeah.
Was there any nerves or apprehensions that you had had as you were trying and like leaning into some of these herbs that you were giving your baby?
I wouldn't say there was apprehension. There was more of a there was a knowing, right?
Mm,
I knew what the body was supposed to do. I knew what it wasn't doing, and I knew what the herbs, how they function. And so that's a part of clinical herbalism that
mm-hmm,
I really like to hone in on when I'm working with clients is the education part of it. This is why. This is the why. This is the action. This is how it's performing. And so when I was integrating herbs into his diet, his routine, as a tea, it was softer, gentler herbs that I knew were going to enhance the experience for him as opposed to, oh, well, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't give him St. John words. You know what I'm saying? Like, so softer, gentler herbs that naturally work to um, push the body just enough to give it kind of like a, okay, you can do it type of effect. And so there wasn't any apprehension. There was more of a knowing. It was like a clinical, like a scientific type of connection. Like, okay, this is what it's supposed to do. This is how
mm-hmm,
this herb acts. This is how it interacts with the body. This is what his body is doing, and this is what it's supposed to do. And so, in just logicking it out in that way, I was confident about working with it that way. Now, I wouldn't if somebody is not experienced with clinical herbalism or doesn't have kind of like that training, I wouldn't say just go ahead and give your baby whatever you are having. Of course not. But if you have like this training and scientific background and a clinical application that you can really connect it to, then I would say start with gentler herbs
mm-hmm.
um, that aren't going to over exasperate the body and slowly integrate them. Now, I wasn't giving him like three things at the same time, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you take regular medicine, you don't take three things at a time without knowing how one is going to affect, interact with your body first. And so I would give him one, like we started with chamomile. That helped him with colic. That helped him, he was getting like rashes, like, on his bottom. Um, put him in a chamomile and oat bath. That helps him with that. It also helped him sleep better, which in turn helps him have less stress, which in
Mm-hmm.
turn helped his body function a bit better. So we started with chamomile. I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. Added the fennel in there, in a drop, using like a dropper vial, right? So I wouldn't just put it in his bottle and he drunk it or whatever. I would give him like drops here and every 30 minutes or a half hour, 30 minutes or an hour or so throughout the day, seeing how that worked over the course of a few days, a week, and okay, let's add something else in there like that. And so, in doing that and taking my time and leaning on logic and leaning on intuition and that scientific um, analysis of the situation, um, I was pretty confident in what I was in how I was addressing what his needs, what he needed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Can you explain to us what is clinical herbalism? I think some folks have gathered what herbalism is,
Hmm.
and there is comfort in that, and they feel confident, like they can go into their pantries, into their apothecaries, they can make some magic.
Yeah.
But when you say clinical herbalism, what are we talking about?
So, I like to define clinical herbalism as working with herbs to reestablish homeostasis within the body naturally by re-optimizing the body's natural functions and the natural flow of things. So, the harmony of the body, the way the organs are working, you are working with the phytochemical composition of the herb and its action and the way that it interacts with the body to re-optimize and rebuild the function of the system while working to re reharmonize the interaction between your body system so that you are combating whatever the dysregulated state is. So, for example, if you have high blood pressure, which is common within our diaspora, if you have high blood pressure and you go to a clinical herbalist, we're going to look at you from a holistic perspective. We're going to look at the lifestyle, the diet, the socio situation that's going on, the stress, and we're going to look at what medicines you're taking. We're going to look at your diet, and we're going to look at why are you having high blood pressure? The big picture, and then we're going to break it down into smaller parts. And we're going to pair the herbs to those different components of your life to give you a holistic perspective that's going to help you re-regulate your system to work optimally the way that it's supposed to naturally. So
Mm-hmm.
again, taking high blood pressure, for example, if you have high blood pressure because you're not getting enough fluidity in your veins, right? In your vessels. They're too constricted. They're not ebbing and flowing the way that they should be, right? So clinically, we're going to look and see why are they not ebbing and flowing the way that they should be. What herb can we pair with you in your lifestyle to help those vessels open up, right? We're not just looking at the symptom of the high blood pressure. So you have high blood pressure and you can't sleep well or you have headaches. We're not just looking at that. We're looking at why are your vessels not working the way that they should be? And that's what we're going to target first. Then we're
Mm-hmm.
going to go in and we're going to look at your lifestyle. Okay, are you not getting enough sleep? Maybe you might benefit from having this passion flower. Are you stressed? Maybe we might need to add a little bit of lavender in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you holding on to a lot of fluid? Like, are we looking at a lymphatic issue? Is that why you are having high blood pressure? So, as a clinical herbalist, I look at the whole, everything, all of the different moving parts that gives you that chronic or that acute state of dysregulation that you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. I think what I enjoy most about herbalism is that we do look at the whole person and the whole lifestyle. We are not isolating one part of who you are and what you do from the other. And we're not interested in just talking about your symptoms,
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us, when we do go to our doctors, our physicians, in modern medicine, if we've got the headache, if we've got the high blood pressure, that's what they want to treat.
Yeah.
I think the invitation of herbalism to go a bit deeper
Hmm.
and to find balance and to help your body remember, I think that invitation is so profound
Hmm.
that I am like, yo, find yourself around a clinical herbalist because we owe
Yeah.
it to our bodies. We owe it to the experience of being alive to tap into the full system. You
Hmm.
know, our body, it may look like they're little parts, but all of these parts are so connected,
Yeah.
you know. And so
Absolutely.
our body tells a full story, not
Yeah.
fragmented bits and pieces here. It's a full story.
Hmm.
And so I think that for you, it's one of those, wow, the science of it, the interest in the full body, and not just let me go get you this herbal blend, sis. It's like, no, let's pause and
Yeah.
let's slow down a bit and look at your body as a full system, but also let's tap into the other aspects of your life that are impacting your entire body, you
Hmm.
know? And so, this invitation to slow down and check in a bit more, that you provide to those who you are in community with and who you offer your services to. But I think herbalism as a whole extends
Hmm.
that invitation. And I'm like, whew, I'm happy to see more people receiving that invitation
Yeah.
consistently because we need it. We really, really do. Do you have moments throughout your childhood and maybe even like your early teenage years, even like those college years, where you can see traces of these little nudges of invitations that you may have gotten from spirit or your ancestors to where you're like, yes, I'm on this path. And yes, you know, I went to law school, I did the thing. But let's be for real. If I look back over my life, I was going to always land right here.
Yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely. That's absolutely that. I remember, and it's so funny. Like when you go through these experiences, and then you look back. Hindsight is always 2020. You're like, oh, that's why she was doing that. Like, so my grandmother, I distinctly remember her. She would put garlic in her water and drink it. She would
Like
chop it up.
straight up garlic, just chop it up.
She would chop it up, put it in her water, and drink it throughout the day.
Okay.
So you know what condition that she had? High blood pressure. She had high blood pressure, and so she would drink garlic because we know that garlic, it is a blood thinner. It helps to move that blood through the body, and so she would drink garlic to help her with her high blood pressure. And I didn't know that, and I remember as a child looking and like, what, Granny, that's nasty. Why are you why are you drinking garlic?
Like she
And
would make
then
it as a paste. She wouldn't like, I don't think there were pureeing things and stuff like that. So she would just take some garlic
she
cloves,
would
chop
chop the garlic up, put it in her water, drink it all day. Just drink it all day. And I remember looking at her like, why are you doing that? Like, and I don't, and it's so funny too because it's like I don't think that she like it just was right. And as an African people, wellness is a lifestyle. It's not just a pick and choose whenever you need it, right? When it's convenient. And
we
so
can't
for
afford it.
her, right. And so for her, a lot of the things that she would do, like the garlic, um, like putting the potato in the sock and put her foot on it and it just suck out all that. You know what I mean? Like doing things like that. It just was. It was just life. That's just how it was. I don't think that she ever classified it or categorized it as I'm practicing herbalism. It's just this is what I know and this works and this is what I'm gonna do. And so now as an adult and when I was going through like my formal training to become an herbalist, I was like, oh, that's why she did that's why she did that, or that's why she drank that green tea all the time because you know what I mean, like because that's that antioxidant. Get those free radicals reined in. That's why she was
Mhm.
always drinking that green tea. I, I didn't know at that time, but then I was like, oh, okay. That's why because I would always watch her whenever she was doing something like that. I would always watch her and be very intrigued by it, and it just felt natural, right? It wasn't foreign to me. It just was. It was life. It was Granny, taking care of herself. And then as I started to actually dive into my ancestry, I realized I come from a line of farmers, of root workers, gardeners, herbalists, community healers. That's what I come from. And so I was like, oh, that's why.
It's in your blood.
Yeah. And I remember, as a child, even as a teenager, always being in tune to my body. And I
Mm,
remember, like, distinctly, like it was yesterday, thinking to myself once, I wasn't feeling well. I don't remember exactly why I wasn't feeling well, but I wasn't feeling well. And I knew something was off. And something in me, spirit, was like, this is why you don't feel well. This is
mm,
what you need to do. And I just have always had that. In African culture, we don't study herbs. We communicate with herbs. We communicate with nature.
it's a relationship.
It's a relationship. And so I've always had that relationship with nature, always sat with the trees and just listened and talked and just felt, right, intuitively. And so I want to say, like, when I got to college, to study, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going, check off all these boxes and do this. I often say now that I kind of betrayed myself
Mm,
because I was living inauthentically, right?
mm,
Inauthentically to what I was really supposed to be doing, what was in my heart, and that was herbs, nature,
mm-hmm,
healing.
mm-hmm,
And I don't remember never having that mindset. Sure, I
mm.
got distracted, when I was in college and going through the motions, I got distracted from that. But once I got back into it, it just felt like I'm at home. This is what I was supposed to be doing this whole time. Where you been, girl? You've been playing.
Mhm. Wow. I am always amazed at how our grandparents and our great grandparents, they were just knowledgeable folks. Like they just knew. They may have not had all of the language,
Yeah.
but we have always been in tune with spirit and with nature. I'm
Hmm.
okay that they didn't have the language. They didn't need
Hmm.
it.
Nope.
They just, again, that knowing that they had on the inside, the fact that grandma knew to put the potato in the side, put the onion in the sock,
Yeah.
we're going to do the garlic, we're going to chop that up, we're going to drink this
Hmm.
how many times a day? All day. Like they just
Hmm.
knew. And
Yeah.
so that wisdom that we grew up around is profound and is invaluable. And the fact that it's just like you grew up right there with it. And it's in your
Hmm.
bones. And you were like, but I bet I go to law school. And
Yeah.
I don't think like that experience isn't wasted because that training and that insight alone provided this level of advocacy inside of you that is
Hmm.
necessary, because it's like I think one of the best fights that we can enter is like the fight within ourselves to live and to be
Yeah.
here. And for you as a clinical herbalist to offer that to us is powerful. Like wow, I can wake up every day and fight against a system that doesn't want me here
Hmm.
simply by going into my garden and grabbing fresh peppermint and
Hmm.
grabbing lemon balm. Oh, I can do that. And so the fact that you are like, yo, I'm here and this is for me and my people, I'm going to help us remember. You've remembered, that these ancestral practices are literally within your lineage and you're
Hmm.
helping us to do that as well. That is amazing. Now, you grew up with farmers in your family. Do you have a garden or a farm now as well?
Yeah, so I have a garden. We've gardened for the last 4 seasons.
Ooh.
We have our herbs, and so we have our medicinal, our ashwagandhas, our tulsi, our lemon balm, all that good stuff. Our catnip, peppermint, of course, and then our culinary herbs that we use for medicinal purposes, of course. But then we also do like our produce, like our peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers. We did pumpkins, which I highly do not recommend doing to people unless you got a real good, pest control issue because them squash beetles are not to play with.
No,
But
they're not
we
my
do.
favorite.
Oh
Mm-mm.
no, yes, and so but we've done a lot of things, and long term goal is I am intentional about opening up a space where people can come in and learn about medicinal herbs
Yeah.
and cultivate their own herbs, learn how to
Mm-hmm.
grow them, because I feel like it's important. So education is a really big part of what I do. Like that's the foundation of everything. I also realize that I'm an educator. I really enjoy educating people and teaching people not just the how but the why behind everything. And so, especially with children, I love championing children to take control of their own wellness. And so, teaching them how to garden is really big
Mm-hmm.
in my house, in my community, teaching them how to grow their own foods, why it works, pairing, herbs with the body in a way that is age appropriate so that they get it and it sticks with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I often have kids come over. So we homeschool. So I homeschool. So herbalism, gardening, botany, is like our science curriculum. That's what we do. Like,
Yes.
that's what we do. And so we invite other children, like in co-op and things like that, to come in and experience that with us. My children, we wildcraft. My children can spot goldenrod from driving 70 miles down down the highway. They can
Oh,
spot goldenrod. Hey, that's goldenrod. They know it better than I do. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful to be in that space where I can teach people how to garden, and especially kids, because they're more open to everything without having these preconceived notions about what it is that they're learning. They're just open. And so
mm-hmm.
that really brings a lot of passion to me and a lot of excitement to be able to share that experiences with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. How has your journey of reclaiming ancestral practices shaped your view of wellness and what it really means to nurture yourself and your family, as well as your community?
It's At the beginning, it made me a little bit upset that we've been so conditioned to live outside of ourselves, who we are naturally, who we are ancestrally, not just within our individual family groups, but as a community. One of the things that my children and I, we have conversations about this a lot, is that our ancestors lived in community, right? We're so separated and disconnected from one another, not just, again, our family units, but us as a people, right? There's so much individualism.
Yeah.
And I wish that we as a people would get back to the understanding of we need to have a symbiotic relationship with each other and with nature,
Yep.
because that's what healing is. Healing is a communal effort. It starts within the home, within the self, but then it's our responsibility to spread that outwardly into the
Mm-hmm.
community, because when one is good, we're all, not everybody is good, but everybody has to be good, right? And so I appreciate having the opportunity to contribute to that reintegration of that communal consciousness,
Yeah.
communal healing. Because, as I said, healing is a lifestyle, it's a community responsibility. It's integral to who we are as a people. And it's something that we desperately need to get back to,
Mm-hmm.
not just for physical wellness, but for spiritual and emotional and mental wellness. Um, I was reading a book and it really clicked to me that there is no separate, like, classification of what wellness is in African traditional experiences, African traditional health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, yoga, that's a symbol of, health and wellness, right? You can practice meditation. That's a symbol of, health and wellness for different groups of people. But for Africans, it's all of that and some. You can't really put a label on what exactly wellness is, because you can't separate it. You can't
It's
separate
life.
it. Just like you can't separate, exactly, just like you can't separate, like, the spirituality. You can't separate, the health and wellness. You can't separate the consciousness. It's all one big thing, right? It's a lifestyle, it's a mindset, it's intention. And
Mm-hmm.
so in knowing that now, I can't unknow it. Sometimes I'm like, ugh, I wish I didn't know. You know what I mean? I wish I could go back.
Yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
I was early in my herbalism experience, I was like, do I really want to do all this? Oh no, this is a lot.
Mhm.
Maybe I should just go back and practice the law. You know what I mean? Like that came up a lot.
No, stay right here. Stay right here. But I think you hit on something very profound in a day and age where health and wellness tends to be hella whitewash, and wellness and health experiences tend to be very isolated and trendy, in a sense that if I go to a yoga session, I just feel so good, and that was a great,
Mm-hmm.
I tap into my wellness, like
Mm-hmm.
just like get in and get out of,
Right. Is
or
that picking and choosing?
yeah, and we have to put a day on the calendar, and that's
Yeah.
my wellness day right there. And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, wait a, since when do we have permission to like
Yeah.
separate it all out? Like, no, this is a birthright. This is a life. This is a lifestyle. This is a practice. This is every aspect of your existence is
Mm-hmm.
about you being healthy, you being well, you being whole. It's not
Yeah.
something that you do on self care Sundays.
Yes.
It's just not.
Yes.
And I think that is killing a lot of us in more ways than one, because we think we can afford to schedule it out like it's a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
We think we can
Mm-hmm.
afford to say it's going to happen 1 hour on a Friday, or hey, when me and my girls, we're going to get up and we're going to do Pilates, and that's it. And we live
Yeah.
the rest of our day in survival mode, trying to just be alive.
Mm-hmm.
And we wonder why.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is we have segmented wellness out in more ways than one, and we are living beneath what we're actually deserving of, which is a life of health and wellness and wholeness, not just
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but all the time.
All the time. Yeah. And that's why I really like working with children too, like the younger generations, because I feel like once you like you start now, and this is what I love about it, is like you start them now, it's going to stay with them. And that's how real change happens, right? Socially. That's how change happens, is when you start with the younger generation. Because I mean, like people, people our age or older, you might they just want to get what they need to get, so we can go ahead and do what we got to do. You know what I mean?
Checking it off on our boxes that we have. We
Yeah.
checked it. You did yoga today, sis, and that was it, and we good.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And kids, younger people, it becomes a lifestyle, so it becomes natural, and then you infuse that into the community. You can infuse that in the world, into the world around them. And like you said, it's so segmented, and I just really wish that it was like we understood that. But it goes back to knowing self. It goes back to self awareness. It goes back to knowing your ancestry, your history, not just your genealogical ancestry, but us as a diaspora, our ancestry as a collective, what
Yeah.
our ancestral practices were, how we viewed health and wellness, and how we viewed community, destiny, harmony, how we viewed all of those things as an African people, going back to those fundamentals can and will shape how we heal ourselves collectively for liberation, right? There's always a social element to it, for me anyway, an activist. I always say
Yeah.
I'm a
Come on, warrior.
revolutionary. I'm a revolutionary, right? It's taking those healing elements and infusing them in every area of life so that people can get it, right? And know that it's in everything that you do. Wellness cannot be segmented, it can't be fragmented, it can't be isolated for when it's convenient. You're either going to do it and be committed to it, or it's not going to be sustainable. It may give you those superficial, bursts of I feel good today, or oh, I got over that cold, or you know what I mean? But it's not, what is the long-term benefit of you parceling it out for whenever it's convenient instead of making it a part of your life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned our collective healing, our collective liberation, which is vital. I see a lot of conversation about self care. And there are some instances in which we will abandon the whole to tend to self to the point where we will be so isolated
Hmm.
and forget our responsibility and opportunity to nurture the whole. Can you speak to that a bit as it pertains to how we heal?
Yeah. So in African tradition, especially when we talk about community, individuality is acceptable. Like it's there's nothing wrong with being attending to self, right? Because wellness starts with the self, right? You have to be able to minister to yourself, be able to minister to other people. So taking care of self is expected and it's necessary, but doing that with the understanding that you are part of the greater collective. And so whatever, it's like the child who leaves home to go get an education and then comes back and infuse that community with the education, right? To uplift the community, to rebuild the community, to educate more of the community so that we are liberating ourselves from the restrictions of society, right? The restrictions that have been imposed on us. So the same thing goes for health and wellness. When we are getting all of these merits and certifications and pieces of knowledge and experiences to nurture ourselves, because that's what we do it for, right? When we there's something that happens within our lives that tells us I need to learn something different so that I can start to feel better for myself. And then that trickles into your family, right? I'm going to fuse this into my children so that they have these foundational pillars for when they get older. And then it expands outward, the friend circle. But then usually that's just as far as it goes. What about everybody else, right?
Yeah.
It's knowing that you, as an individual, you have a responsibility to yourself, to your family, your unit. But then also, if you don't do anything with that knowledge that's going to uplift your people, what is it really for, right? Because we're all a part of this. We're all connected, and especially as African people, when we have so many different societal, social, economic restrictions that are placed upon us by the system.
Yeah.
If you are getting these beneficial experiences, why not give them to other people so they can have the same thing? Because then you raise that frequency, that energetic vibration of your people, and we are able to then move to a higher level of existence, a higher level of functionality, a lot higher level of, societal standing. So it starts with knowing ourselves. It starts with knowing that we are an individual that has this power, and infusing that into the world around us, our community, and then our larger community, our macrocosm of
Mm-hmm.
existence as a people, so that we can elevate ourselves, knowing that we deserve to have a life of fulfillment, of wholeness, of you know um, positivity, of longevity, vitality. We deserve to have that as a people. A lot of the times, and I'm speaking from like a socioeconomic perspective, being an attorney, working with different demographics of people, that a lot of the reason that a lot of the things that contributes to people being in situations where they need a lawyer, right, is because they don't feel they're missing something. They feel like they're missing something.
Mm.
And oftentimes it starts with mental health
Yep.
that can be compounded on by what's going on in the family dynamic, which
Mm-hmm.
going maybe they didn't have enough to eat, right? They're not getting that nutritional value to nurture that brain, right, or nurture that digestive system, and so they're storing all of this toxicity and all of this gunk and all of these pathogens in the body, and that leads to dysregulated states in other areas, and then it's just a trickle effect, right? And then you have mental health, and then you have you know them doing certain things to supplement for what they're not getting in their mental health. You know what I mean? So it's just like so many different things that ties back into health and wellness, and our responsibility as the ones who have the keys to give that back to our people so that they can elevate themselves and then return the favor and do it again and again and again so that it becomes a generational healing experience. Does
Hmm.
that answer your question?
It does. It really,
Okay.
really does. I think where people get lost between self care and communal health and wholeness is, hey, once I'm good and once I've got something, I need to continue to give. As
Mm-hmm.
I've received, I give. And so I think we get stuck on the, listen, I need to receive a lot right now. I'm dealing with my own family traumas and mental health and all the things. And so it's like we take a lot of time for deep, deep, deep healing and resolve within ourselves. And sometimes we don't feel like we have the capacity to give even a little bit. And so we get stuck in that habit and that flow of self care Sundays. I live for the day where I'm like, oh, self care Sundays are great. Take them, they're necessary. But when we make health and wellness a part of our everyday life experience, self care won't be a Sunday kind of thing
Yeah.
that is
Mm-hmm.
so heightened because it's a part of my everyday life. In
Yeah.
fact, communal wellness is a part of my everyday life. I
Mm-hmm.
know how to make sure I've got the top of my day and I'm starting it with every good and perfect thing that my body, mind, and soul needs. And throughout my day, I'm constantly nourishing myself and I'm checking in with my people, my family, my friends, my community. It's my lifestyle. And if
Mm-hmm.
I happen to have a day like a Sunday, it doesn't feel like I had to wait 6 days to get to that one to
Mm-hmm.
experience being healthy and whole.
Yeah.
And so, us taking the restriction off of our own health and wellness journeys is so important.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that aspect of as we have received, make it a point in our lives to give. And that is how we edify the whole. That is how we heal together because
Mm-hmm.
it's necessary. I don't care how far you live, you can't be on no island. Black folks,
Mm-hmm.
like, we are together. You know,
Yeah.
when I see you, listen, you my sister. Like,
Yeah.
let's come to this table together. That's just in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is no, I don't
Yep.
care what socioeconomic status you're a part of, how much money y'all make, what y'all do, how y'all do it. We still kinfolk.
Yeah. Yep.
We still need each other, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so, what I want you to do now is share a little bit of this information and knowledge you have with our community. What is one of your favorite herbal remedies that you provide for your community, for your children, that you would want to share for the healing and wholeness of all of us?
Ooh, that's tough. I would say so. So one that I like regularly drink, and again, because health starts in the gut. I'm really big on gut health. One of my favorite blends that I create is called Gut Soothe. It's a
Hmm.
mix of different herbs that are again going to help start that digestive fire, so get things flowing, get things activated, get that bile going, but then also help you to draw in those nutrients that you need, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll help the body process those nutrients more efficiently. And then it also helps to repair like um, any abrasions within the gut lining, any type of irritation that's in the gut lining. It'll help to soothe that and heal that over. So you're gonna have plantain, you're gonna have calendula. You might put a little bit of chamomile in there, especially if you deal with a lot of like indigestion,
Mm-hmm.
flatulence, things like that. I throw a little bit of ginger in there. Also heavy on the fennel because yes, fennel is great.
Yes, it really is.
Fennel and chamomile together, that's it right there.
Mm.
And then I also throw some peppermint in there as well. I'm gonna
Mhm.
mix that in there. Let it. I like to let my all my medicinal teas. steep for at least an hour. I know that, sometimes if you buy them, they say like, 5, 10 minutes. How you gonna get the medicinal content down there in 5, 10 minutes? No, you need to let it steep. So I let mine steep for about an hour at least, sometimes four. Depending on what I'm doing, I'll drink about 32 ounces of that a day, split up, not all at once, or if I'm busy, all at once. And that's really going to help you to eliminate. It's going to help draw out those toxins, but it's also going to replenish what is you're losing. So it's going to replenish those nutrients, that potassium, magnesium. It's going to help you flush out the system, though. So it's going to help to rebuild that gut bacteria. And
Mm-hmm.
again, as I said, help to restore that gut lining so that those gut bacteria can replenish themselves and get rid of that gunk that might be stuck within in the colon.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite. I
Wow.
love it. I give it to the kids. It helps them stay regular. Like it's really great, especially if you're going to be like eating a heavy meal. It's really great to help break that down. Especially the fennel. That's why they put fennel in sausages. It's because it helps to break down that fatty content of the meat. So drinking even just fennel and chamomile will help with stomach aches, indigestion, bloating. It's really good for that as well. If you have certain specific like digestive or metabolic disorders, it could benefit you in that way as well.
Come on, way to be a clinical herbalist. She said, "This is my go-to." Okay, and that's important. I feel like I want to make some of that.
Yes.
Just sip it a little bit.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, we have a lot of folks who are interested in starting an herbalism journey or are trying to figure out how to include more plants and herbs into their everyday life. And so, what is a bit of wisdom or a tip that you would want them to know so they can feel more confidently as they lean into this ancestral practice?
Start with culinary herbs. I'm sure most of us use herbs every single day, whether it's that thyme that you're putting, on your casserole, your meats, your peppermint that you might be using, especially this time of year. We're heavy on peppermint, in the holiday season. Start with your culinary herbs, research them, and see how they may fit into your life, where you are in this stage. Like I said, we all use culinary herbs regularly, so that's a great place to start. They're usually pretty simple to cultivate yourself too. You can start a herbal garden in your kitchen. Put it on the windowsill.
Yeah.
That's a really solid place to start because you use them, and herbs are only as good as the ones that you use, right? If you're not going to use them, then what's the point? So start with what you already use. Fennel, if you have that look in your cabinet, in your cupboard, in your pantry. What do you have in there already? Use that, research that, see what it can be applied to medicinally, and build off of that. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of different herbs. Like I tell my clients and my students all the time, like you don't got to go out spend $100 on herbs. You know what I mean?
Don't
Go
do
to go to Buyer, Walmart, wherever, Whole Foods. Get you your pantry staples and start there. Food is wealth. Food is health. It's wellness. Start with what you know already and just build off of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful wisdom. Starting exactly where you are with what you have, because that's the most powerful place to be. You know, it can get
Yes.
intimidating sometimes looking at those of us who've had gardens for seasons, or because of our herbalism journeys, we have apothecaries with tons of herbs and we've got medicine that's constantly being made. And it's like, it takes time
Yeah.
to get to where we are, and your journey, it's yours. But
Hmm.
start with what you know you're going to use.
Hmm.
Don't be getting licorice root. You're not going to use it.
Right.
You have sage in your cabinet though, right now. You got sage, you got garlic, you got honey. I bet you got an orange and you got lemon. That's
Hmm.
beautiful. Start right there, and lean into your ancestors who have the wisdom, who knew the way.
Hmm.
I think that's so important, and it helps to make herbalism less intimidating.
Yeah.
You It's
Hmm.
yours, sis. It's all yours. If you got a couple of herbs, you do that thing. Infuse your intentions and be well.
Yeah.
Be super, super well.
Hmm.
Well, listen, this has been an insightful and beautiful, amazing conversation.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm about to tap into some additional gut health. I'm
Hmm.
about to look to see how much fennel do I have up in there. Thing or two with some additional fennel. It's been beautiful, really listening to your journey and what's brought you here and the level of authenticity that you operate in. And I am amazed at your ability to remember so well all of the experiences that you've had, that your grandparents had, that really helped cultivate the space that you're in and the power that you reside in for being a really great clinical herbalist.
Thank
It's
you.
like your path is going to lead you here regardless. But I'm also glad that you have training as an attorney because I think that fight within you really provokes and inspires something within all of us. Like we deserve to be here. Like spirit
Hmm.
has us by design and intention. And so to have an advocate like you running alongside us on our journey, it's a powerful force. And
Thank
so
you.
thank you for being with me today. My prayer is that we be still enough to listen to spirit and
Hmm.
that we can allow our ancestors to guide us in new and profound ways because they know what it's like to be here and they've
Yes.
got wisdom to give us. And so may we be open to receiving from them. May we lean into Mama Earth and all of the goods that reside inside of her because there are the keys that we need. There's all of the medicine that we need to be
Yes.
alive and well. And may we remember that healing and wholeness is not a one day experience, it is a
Hmm.
birthright that we get an opportunity to live and experience every single day and every part of our day. May we
Yes.
be well.
Ashe.
And so it is. Thank you so, 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 so much. I'm hoping that today y'all were inspired by Anisha just like I was, and that you will find ways to allow yourself to start where you are with what you have. I think that's the powerful
Hmm.
key. And may we remember that our healing and that our wellness happens together in community.
Yes.